hello again. So I'm just going to do a recording here of, let's see, Warp 2. I'm just doing actually let me see if I have any tech open. Launch of an Atlas sounding rocket. I already launched one just during a test video for this. Do a rollout. It takes a pretty solid amount of time to do a rollout. I still need to, here. I haven't exactly figured. A number of people have commented, and I found obviously how to show, say, let's see, show, America real, historical time here, but not down here. I'm not entirely sure what I need to change. So if you know how to do that, comment in a little more detail, because I didn't quite figure it out. But I'm fine with it just showing here as well, no hate. So let's see, VAB. Looks like we're nearing a critical awesome technology, which is great. I don't want to launch during the night. Come on now. All right, so let's launch. So my last launch was an amazing failure. This is, in my recollection, this is the first vehicle I've launched that had more than one stage engine on the first stage. And it's not just two engines. This isn't just three engines. Technically, it's core engine, two booster engines, and two vernier engines. Now, the vernier engines are less critical, but arguably still important, unless, if you're not smart enough, like I wasn't, to set up an action group to turn them off, because miraculously, almost all the engines, my first sounding rocket of this started, except one of the verniers, which made the control a bit difficult. All right, so let's just pull up some info and launch this. Actually, I should brighten up my screen since, there we go. Now I can see it too. All right. So I don't have the center engine set up, and I should explain that again, why. I don't have it set because during some of the first tests of this, awesome, all of the engines lit. Whoa, wobbly there. During the first tests of this vehicle, they didn't use the center engine because I don't know why exactly, but there's just so many new systems and things being tested on this vehicle in general. Throttle up. I don't think these engines throttle anyway. But like core engine, it's called the sustainer engine. That's not how it's labeled here, but it's a sustainer engine. And then you've got the two booster engines, which are quite like the Thor engine. They have same lineage. Really, they're all of the same lineage. They're just starting to diverge now. They burn kerosene, so an evolution from that alcohol fuel of the early versions. Oh, I already did have it pitching? Question mark. Okay. 86, yeah. So I've just been doing a lot of pre-controlled flight. Like, this is my first video coming back after a little bit. I kind of like most people who aren't professional YouTube or anything, they record a group of videos in kind of a short period of time and then roll them out over time. So if you make a comment of something, I've seen a lot of comments, you missed this, or this is the solution to your thing, and I've figured it out between one video and the next. But I appreciate the comment, right? That confirms that I'm not crazy, and often, you guys will suggest something I haven't quite tried, or a little different from what I've tried. So we've got 4 engines running on this thing, which is pretty awesome, and we're gathering nice, tasty data. So let's see, which are the booster engines? The 89s, I think? The LR89, yeah. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that, and of course, time to burn. But yeah, I'm just going to use this as just a basic sounding rocket. I'm going to have it mostly go up. But so this is a balloon tank, which I might have mentioned in the construction video. So it's a very light construction of tank, and this is kind of a heavy sleeve at the bottom that holds the booster engines. And all of this, it was designed this way in part so that all the engines, just like the Soviet R-7, their first intercontinental ballistic missile, which they used to launch Sputnik, etc. You want all the engines to be able to, you want to light them all at the ground, because that's the most reliable thing. Really, at this point, they were only sort of experimenting with launching things, having staging. They weren't having the best luck with second stage firings, with more complex events happening away from the launch pad. So if you're going to have these big, powerful engines, both nations felt more comfortable having all the engines light at the ground. And then what they would do is, roughly around this point in the flight, if obviously if they had the sustainer burning as well, they would drop off this sleeve with these 2 heavy booster engines, and so you just have this sustainer engine, which would be more efficient in vacuum. And let me tell it to point orbital. Oh, I'm losing some kind of control here. It's getting wobbly. Let me just try to manually control it. So we're pretty much out of the atmosphere. Oh, and we lost an engine. So we had an engine shutdown, one of those booster engines, but that's okay. We get to watch this nice, beautiful, shiny tank spin madly out of control. And I'll just let it go. Why not? Because really, I'm just gathering more data. Oh, until that other engine shut down. All right. And just so you can see, did I set up the sleeve? It should be one of these. Or do I no longer have enough battery power for control? Nope, ran out of charge. So there we go. So yeah, we didn't get a huge amount of altitude, but we gathered some data, and this is sort of what they actually did in testing this rocket. Not exactly, obviously, but they did some long range flights of it in order to gather knowledge of how all the systems would work well together. And so now that I've gathered a bit of data on these, actually not too bad of an amount of data. Are the verniers still burning? Oh, the verniers are totally burning. Although I'm out of electricity, so I can't control them. So actually I'm just going to let them burn as long as they want to, because the more data I gather from those verniers, the better. That means the more reliable they'll be down the line. But it's a novel design. I mean, it's a bold move. Both nations moving to these intercontinental ballistic missiles. These unprecedented ranges. They have to design these new packaged upper stages capable of atmospheric reentry with their nuclear weapon. And so the Americans decided, but they had a smaller H-bomb at the time, much lighter, like 1.5 tons, something like that. And so they could get away with this vehicle, which is roughly 100 tons or 150 tons at launch, whereas the Soviets went with like a 300-ton R-7 rocket. It's similar concepts other than the balloon rocket, the balloon tank concept of this rather. There we go. Looks like we lost one of the engines, one of the verniers. So I'll let that go. There we go. It shut down too. So I'll abandon it up here where I can. But yeah, we gathered a good bit of data. The Soviets didn't go with the light tanking structure like this. The Americans had a smaller H-bomb that they wanted to fire, and they also had they wanted to experiment with this lighter balloon tank. So what was it? I'm currently reading a biography of Korolev, the Soviet designer, and I believe it said that both the tank, that sustainer engine, and the nuclear warhead, once they burned out, it ran out of fuel, that whole thing was 7 tons. So it was a feather light design, this Atlas rocket we're testing out, and it ended up being a pretty decent intercontinental ballistic missile, just like the R-7 also did, and a great basis for the for American and Soviet space technologies, respectively, for the two of them. So I'm going to probably do another sounding rocket test where rather than, let me just find the piece of garbage I used last time. That's on a suborbital trajectory. Let me see, what is that, 140 by, oh yeah, just very slightly. Fair enough. Currently I'm doing something completely separate. I'm going to ignore that maneuver node. That's from my test video. So I'm just grabbing a piece of garbage that's orbiting equatorially around the Earth. And I'm going to warp until it is out in the daylight, because daylight videos are better. Bob Fitch says you got to have more lights, and I just do things in daylight. But I totally want to use more lights, much like Bob Fitch, once 1.1 is out. So let's see. The Atlas, it's this light tank. The Soviets, in comparison, had a much heavier H-bomb. They didn't have the miniaturization ability when they built it. Therefore, they needed a heavier rocket, which allowed them to kind of jump ahead of the Americans in rocket technology, able to place higher weight payloads for their ICBM because they had to, and also allowed them to place heavier payloads into orbit. Anyway, so I'm going to do another flight of that, but with the sustainer engine running, and that'll be representative of a later Atlas-sounding rocket test. But now I only have to pay a little bit of R&D cost for that center engine rather than for the booster engines as well and verniers, which is nice. So this is just a random piece of orbital garbage I'd selected, and you may wonder why. Let me just delete that because that doesn't exist. All right, so what I'm going to do is show you how I set up Kerbal alarm clock. Here we go. For the interplanetary missions that we want to carry out in the near-term future. So first we will use MechJeb because it has tons of awesome tools buried. Maneuver Planner. This was already selected in the test kitchen. When I was shooting at the moon, I had this selected. So in this case, you'd pull Maneuver Planner, you'd select Advanced Transfer to another planet, which is pretty well named. Not entirely sure what it's displaying. Oh, I have Mars selected, fair enough. So first let's select Venus. It's going to calculate what's called a pork chop plot. In the test video I called it a juicy pork chop plot, which is fair, because some of these contoured color regions are vaguely shaped like pork chops. So that's actually where it got their name from my understanding. So the further towards the red in the color spectrum you're seeing, that means it's a higher delta V maneuver. So yeah, literally 100 kilometers per second. So as I move, if you've ever seen a contour plot, this might just be completely look like gobbledygook to you, but as I move, say, into different colored regions, that delta V number you're seeing gets lower and lower. So highest delta V requirements are way up in the red region, and then towards the blue-purple are lower delta V requirements. The x-axis moving left to right is an axis of departure date. So like right now, closest any, like as it says anytime now. So these would be departure dates on the left that are closest to right now. And as I move up, these are how much time will it take to get somewhere. So for example, if I wanted to leave right now and I wanted to shoot something at Venus and get it there in 30 days or 24 days, I would need to use 105 kilometers per second of delta V, which I just can't deliver right now for some reason. That's not feasible for me. So as I move up here into this green region, it's less but still expensive, 9 kilometers per second of delta V. Okay, so the reason I pulled this up is because I want to be able to do future planning. So to do future planning, I need to select regions of low delta V. So one way to select this region, this blue region, to zoom in on it is click your left mouse and hold and drag. Oh, don't want to move that. See, that's one of the downsides of this method. So inside the colored frame, click, hold, drag, select a region, let go, and it's going to zoom in on that selected region. Another way is to hover over an area and push in with your scroll wheel. So I zoomed in one click with my scroll wheel. So I'm zooming in on the bluest, purplest region to get the lowest delta V. So now I'm going to say select lowest delta V. It's going to automatically select the lowest delta V in the region I currently have lit up. And if I move the mouse off the screen, it's going to show you what it has selected, which is something down in this region here. It's going to tell you how far in the future that departure may be and how many days it would take to do that travel. So every second, that gets a second closer. And so about 3.6 kilometers per second delta V. So what I do is I create a node, even though I don't plan to use it, and of course I don't plan to use this craft for it. I'm still going to set up an alarm clock because it's going to be useful. So Kerbal Alarm Clock is very useful for setting up alarms based on context. So it notices I have a maneuver node set in the future. So that's why it has maneuver node selected. It's creating an alarm for that point in the future that the maneuver node is set for. So I'm just going to rename it to Venus because I believe that's the planet I selected. And about the delta V it's going to take, according to this, 3588. Okay, so let's just round up. I never round down because I'm never going to do it for less than that, but it's probably going to take me more. All right, and there we go. So that's an alarm for an actual time in the future for targeting Venus. And it's going to show me the date. How many days in the future is that? Now I'm going to remove that maneuver node, select Mars, do the exact same thing. So new plot for Mars. So same deal. This is further into the future when the burn would be, and this is a longer duration of flight. Since I'm not sending live crews, and I just can warp into the future, I'm not racing actual Russians, I don't mind how long it's going to take, right? If there's a region up here of low cost to get there, that's what I would take. And I also find a correlation, there's a connection between if it takes less energy to get there, it's also going to take you less energy to slow down into the orbit of that planet. That's at least in my experience. So there's a lot of reasons to select, primarily for the lowest amount of delta V to get there. So I'm just zooming in on this region by center mousing, and I noticed, so something I always used to do is say try to select at the edge, just barely get one pixel in here and then select and drag. And that's really difficult, I found. And then at some point I accidentally or saw somebody else do just with the scroll wheel, slick in, and that's just way better because I can even do that at the edge here, just slick in and it would zoom in on that region. But anyway, lowest delta V, create node. So basically the same business. This number is going all crazy because I'm rolling. I just noticed that during my test video. I've never seen that before. but I can still see new things. So add new alarm, same deal. It's going to automatically select the name of my probe, which will be useful in other future things that I'll show when I use that. So here, I'm going to go Mars 3665. I'll slightly round up. But I know these numbers not too bad. So I might not be able to make these, I may not be able to build a craft for these windows because one is less than a year away. I may not have the technology to shoot something of value at Venus, or it may just make sense for me to wait. I know the windows for Mars are like roughly once every 2 years. I don't know offhand what they are for Venus, but I'd be surprised if it was on a different order of magnitude. I'd expect to be able to shoot something at Venus. Actually, I mean, this porkchop plot should show me. But basically, if you miss a window, you're going to have to wait a while, or roughly a year or two, before you can do another shot. But yeah, that's how I set those up. It's really quick. It's really easy. It's not perfect by any means, but I love that I can do it in under 5 minutes. And now that those exist here, I could close that up. I don't actually need those maneuver nodes because I just selected a piece of garbage to do this with. I think that was just the stage that pointed one of my lunar probes at the moon. I'm not sure if it was the one that was successful or the one that was less successful. And just waiting to load it here because this is where I really want to see it, at the campus here. When I've got, say, Kerbal construction time pulled up and it's telling me, okay, how much time to that, how much time to my future techs. I'd love to be able to compare. So here's the time to these future techs. I'd like to use the solids. That would be nice. Well, what about when will those be done? So these will be 50 days plus 280 days. So I can right away tell that I'm not going to be able to use those solids for a Venus probe, but I might be able to use it for a Mars probe if I can construct something fast enough. So being able to see these numbers side by side is hugely valuable to me. I literally used to write these down with pen and paper, set up these nodes when I'm out, when I was out there. Then I discovered Kerbal Alarm Clock and how quick and easy it is to use. So thanks for, I think it's Trigger AU, who I think might even be part of the squad staff. I don't recall everything offhand right now. But yeah, for the original creators and maintainers of this mod, thank you very much. So I just wanted to show off that useful trick because I find it very useful. Next video I will build and fly another Atlas sounding rocket, but I will be lighting the center sustainer this time, which will let us get longer range. I'll describe a bit of why that is and how that is, and one of the engines may very well fail. Fun thing about test flight is the more engines you have running at a time, the more higher chance you have of at least one of them failing. And if one engine fails, the whole craft may very well fail, depending on the design you have, which is why it's super fun, I find, with test flight, to design your own craft, because you want to build for redundancy, right? You kind of imagine, what if an engine were to fail at this point? Would I be able to survive, right? And so I find that very interesting and enjoyable in my craft design. You may not, but that's why I I'm following how I'm using test flight right now. So thanks for watching. I hope it was enjoyable. I hope you've seen some useful tricks or learned some useful history. I look forward to you watching the next video, and I look forward to making it. Goodbye.